Hello! In this video, I will show you how to install the latest version of Aether in your DAW so that you can stream audio directly to TouchDesigner. So the first thing to note is that the new version has now installers, which makes things much easier. You don't need anymore to juggle files and place them manually. You can simply run the installer for your platform. In my case, it's Windows. And when you do so, you may get a warning from Windows Defender or the Apple security system saying that it's from an untrusted developer. You need to bypass that and skip it. That is because these installers are not signed, and that costs some money. I don't know if I will do it anytime soon, so just bypass that. And when you do, you will get a window like any other installer that looks like this. So read it, accept the agreement if you agree, and then you will have here the list of things that are going to be installed. It's going to be an audio unit or a VST3 plugin, and it's going to be as well a custom chop operator. This is new and is not the same as in the previous version. I will explain that change in a bit. Then just go ahead and install, but keep in mind that before installing, you need to close both TouchDesigner and your DAW so that they can start fresh. If you don't, it's going to complain and tell you the applications that are running and should be closed. I already installed this, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to skip this step, but you should install it. And once you do, then you simply go to your DAW, and under my name for your plugins, you will find Aether. Now, I want to use Aether in the first channel. So I'm going to send this data, this audio data, audio signal, directly to TouchDesigner without any additional bus. That's the whole point of having Aether. So I'm going to drop it there, and you get this tiny window. This is the name default. That is the default name for the stream, and that is the most important parameter that you have. Now, on the side of TouchDesigner, now you have under custom operators the Aether In CHOP. That's what we need to use now. So in the past, we had to use the shared memory in CHOP, but this is no longer the case. The reason for this change is twofold. The most important one is that I wanted this tool to be free for everybody, not only for people who have commercial licenses of TouchDesigner, which is the only version that has shared memory in, but also because the audio that you get now from the new operator is an actual audible signal. So that means it is not as before, which was a ring buffer optimized for certain kind of analysis that you didn't need really to listen to. Now I changed that because some other analysis requires the signal to be absolutely clean, such as a spectral analysis. And for that, now the signal is totally audible. So I've managed to keep the latency pretty much the same. So there's no trade-off on that side, and I'm very happy with how it came together. So we completely can ignore this one and replace the workflow to use this new chop operator, which is much, much better. Okay, that being said, now let's send some audio from Ableton in this case. When you start sending the audio, you will see the indication here that actually something is being sent. Then you will simply receive the signal in TouchDesigner, but it depends on the name you have. Of course, now I left it at default, so it just works. But if I change the name to be organized, let's call this one signal 1. Now I don't see anything, but as soon as I name it correctly, then the audio comes back in. Okay, that's perfect. Now, another thing that you may have noticed if you used Aether before is that you don't have any more a buffer size here. That is because now it's managed from this side with the prefill frames. So the logic is a little bit different, the architecture of this operator, because prefill, what it does is allocates the size for the buffer. And here's how you can control how many samples or frames you want to keep open for this to fill in. And that determines the latency. So the more frames, the more latency you have. But also, the more frames, the more signal you get. So this is a bit of a trade-off. I think this buffer size is pretty standard, so you can use this for most applications. You can go lower. There is a table online on the issue tracker for Aether where you can read all the latency and how much or how you should set it up if you want to play with this. I recommend it though to leave it like this. For most cases, that's what you will need. Now, the other thing that you may notice is we have a drift correct toggle here. This is an optimization mechanism to ensure that the signal is always clean, because on long runs it may drift since the clock in TouchDesigner is different than the clock in your DAW. So we need to have some kind of mechanism to ensure that all the samples arrive uncorrupted. That is what this drift correct is for. So you should leave it on by default. And then the reset simply clears up the buffer and makes it start again. So this is just a cleanup mechanism. Like I said, the latency of this operator is absolutely comparable to the previous one. So there is no trade-off there. This one is just much better because it has more options. Now let's see about the signal itself, because now if I plug it into something like my audio device out, you can actually listen to this. And it's a clean signal. It's not like in the previous version where we had a signal that we could use for analysis but was not really audible. In this case, it's fully audible. So that's a major step up. Now, let's talk a little bit about the channels. We have the same options as before, stereo. If you send a mono L, mono left channel of your stereo signal, then here the indication will be replicated for left and right, but you actually are receiving just one channel, as you expect. Then mono right is the right channel, and mono mix means if you have a stereo signal, it's going to mix both channels into one mono signal that is going to be sent, so it's also mono. Okay, by default it's on stereo though. One more thing, which is the last button here in this VST, which is very simple one. You just click on this icon and you will get some more information about how this works, including latency information if you're curious to know how many milliseconds the buffer size or the prefill size cost you. So here you can see. All right. Now, what if you want to have multiple audio tracks? So that is absolutely possible, and there's really not a limit on how many of them you have. I haven't tested, but I suspect that you can do, 100 or more. I'm not sure, but keep it up, try it out. Just plug it into another track, and now you have another instance of this. Let's call this one signal 2, and then in TouchDesigner, let's create another Aether In called signal 2. You see here that I have two called signal 1, and this one will get confused because there's already one existing signal 1, so let's just call signal 2, and now it works perfectly fine again. Okay, so now we have the two tracks sending, and we have two distinct paths here. And of course, you can use any kind of things from here on in TouchDesigner. To give you an example, you could pair it with my other tool, the EssentiaTD, that is available for free on GitHub and on Patreon. So you can just plug it here. For example, if I take the spectrum of the second one, and I can do spectral analysis or loudness or rhythm. Let's take spectral analysis to start with. And here you can see all the data we get in real time from this. Or we can simply directly do loudness, doesn't need a spectrum there, to see some information about it. And of course, a very useful one, you can do rhythm, which you can do from the spectrum. And now you can get the beat, the BPM, phase, etc. So this is an estimation of the track that is coming in. So all this kind of analysis now you can do, of course, with the new version of Aether. All right. I think that sums it up. If you have any issues or any questions, please refer to the issue tracker of Aether that is listed on the Patreon. If you don't know where that is, let me just put it here very quickly. It's in this address. So github.com/Aether issues. This is where you can find some information about it, pull some issues, and you can read about latency and other things. So please use this if you have any issues. And don't forget to join the Discord channel to follow for updates and other discussions. You can also post issues there. So feel free to use any of these avenues. And I hope you enjoy Aether. Looking forward to see what you do with it. Thank you. Bye-bye.